Welcome back, everyone, to another CPR Moral Leadership Coaching Tidbit. We are breaking through traditional leadership styles for optimum success. And we did it twice because 2 times is better than one. Hello, everyone. I am Cheryl, and I'm the managing partner and founder for Consultant Proficiency Resources, otherwise known as CPR LLC, where we resuscitate, reinvigorate, and revitalize one business, one leader at a time. We're all about advocating for small business leaders, and we have the tools right here in our CPR Moral Leadership Coaching Tidbit to assist you in evolving into a more effective leader, and not just any leader, but to be a moral, ethical leader. You may recall episode number 1, where I cited a study that indicated out of 1,100 respondents, 89% of the respondents across different disciplines indicated that today more than ever, a moral, ethical leader is needed. So if you're transactional in nature, maybe transformational, a dictatorship-like, autocratic, charismatic, and you desire to elevate your leadership style, whether you're in corporate or you're a minority woman-owned business, or you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you desire to do it right the first time, stick with us, CPR LLC Moral Leadership Coaching Tidbit, and we will assist you as we do a hand-hold approach on how to evolve into a moral leader. Now, it's going to require patience. It's going to require self-reflection, definitely your commitment. It's definitely going to require active listening and doing the work. We all know faith without works is dead. If you believe you have the skill set to manage and lead your business, you want to do it effectively. You do not want to self-sabotage, you do not desire to sabotage your business. So what we have to do is to eliminate any weaknesses, any threats to your business. And it first starts within. You have to start with an innate. What inside of you is sabotaging your business? And then you fan out to any external areas, including members of your team. But you have to be ready to do the work. So if that's you, here we go. Now, a little bit of a summary. The first episode of CPR Moral Leadership Coaching Tidbit was really designed as an introduction. We also offered up about 10 attributes. This by no means limited to 10 attributes, but you have to lay a foundation, and we did. We also introduced a SWOT analysis, which you should be aware of. This should be part of your business plan. And if it's not, and you're scratching your head, SWOT, who? Give us a call or send us an email. We will assist. But in introducing the SWOT analysis, you go to video number 1. And if you have no clue, you didn't attend business school, so you're not aware of it, video number 1 will give you kind of like a very quick crash course on how to devise a SWOT analysis for this particular purpose. And the goal here is to plot those attributes in here so you can clearly have a vision of what innately you say you are, because you're doing the self-reflection. So we plotted, I did myself as an example. Everyone has weaknesses and threats. You want to know what it is. And understanding that in the weaknesses and threats, it's important that we transition them pretty quickly to opportunities and strengths. If we do not continue to work towards improving oneself, this then becomes business sabotage, which leads us into episode number 2, business sabotage. What we identified is the weakness and threats from episode 1. I introduced the online Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's important to understand the real definition, an objective definition of the terms, words used. And in doing so, you are able to clearly see what references you are not. Does this particular word describes who I am day in and day out? And if it is, then you know indeed it's a weakness and threat. The goal here is to go opposite. Bad habits have been, if you practice them day in and day out, you can easily adopt bad habits. And eventually, if not addressed, it becomes part of who you are, as natural as breathing, correct? So similarly, if you desire to change, break that mold, break that bad habit, one must reverse what you have been doing for years. So if you have an ego and you're the type of person to walk in a room, oh, I'm here, it's all about me, thinking about yourself, not having any empathy for anyone else, not hearing anyone's ideas, and you're totally self-centered, it's all about you, the world revolves around you, then that is an attribute you want to do it with to become more humble. So the opposite of ego is humility. And in that, if you understand what it means to be humble, you're able to take those attributes to your workplace. And the only way you can do so is with practice. Remembering this is what you're working on. Hence the reason I recommend getting a whiteboard in a place where you're going to see it all the time, or you take your logbook. We do have a logbook for those who are new to this platform. We recommend you do your self-reflection. You have a book dedicated for that, or a particular document on your computer if it's online, dedicated for your self-reflection. You do it by theme, by number, by date. Go through the process, how you're feeling when you finally realize that you have an ego, but more importantly is that you desire to change to become a better person. And that change and that will and the desire is why you're here today. So if you were to do the work and the attributes of a humble leader, one that possesses humility, and that also means confidence, then you're able to do that day in and day out and definitely break that mold. And this brings us into ineffective leadership. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And we're going to close down this screen. And we're going to get into ineffective leadership. There is poor leadership, and this is the word cloud of poor leadership, understanding that if you're a poor leader, it really will wreak havoc on all those other words that surround the term leader, right? So we want to move away from poor leadership or ineffective leadership, and you really want to focus on being an effective leader. In this next screen, I have a side-by-side attribute column in terms of good leader qualities, in case you're saying, well, what exactly an effective leader or good leader does. And then you have bad leader qualities. So what you can do is you can pause this video right here, take a snapshot of it, and or write down some of the words as a good leader that pertains to you, and then some of the words of a bad leader qualities that pertains to you. And the bad leader qualities in this episode, number 3, an effective leader, is what you want to put a stop to. If you're violent in the workplace, I recall working in a particular industry maybe about 15 years ago when I heard that one of the leaders, what he does is throw things at staff. That's violent. If you abuse it verbally, using profanity on your members of your team, that's a bad leader. That's violent. If you're stealing, right, legally, when you look at the law, we know that one should not steal, right? If we look at the biblical principles, we know thou shalt not steal, right? And in order for you to steal, to desire something, that means you have to covet it first, right? You have to desire what someone else wants for you to take the extra step to steal. We know in business, there are money laundering and Ponzi schemes of the 90s and the early 2000s, right? And these are businessmen leading. So stealing is a bad quality. If that's something you used to do, this is a habit that you desire to break. Understand that, yes, the first step is understanding that you desire to change. And the second step is understanding how you got there. The third step is doing the reverse, right? Stop coveting, desiring what someone else need or what someone else have, and understand you can attain the same goal, but it's always going to require work. There are no shortcuts to being a business leader. There are no shortcuts to being an effective, moral, ethical leader, making those tough choices, but knowing exactly where you are on your faith walk. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be challenging, but it's really going to be worth it on the back end or even on your journey when you begin to see the transition. And better yet, when your spouse, members of your team, or your confidant sees the transition. Some other bad leader attributes, including lying, not telling the truth, being coined a pathological liar. There are many of them. We can speak of several of them on the highest level without me going into it, that they're just whatever they say. It's not the truth. You could bank that, right? So lying is not good. Being rude, interrupting individuals when they're speaking, thinking that what is on your mind is more important than anyone else. So you would interrupt your members of your team, you would interrupt your client, you would interrupt your business partner. That's rude. Or the people around. So those are some of the things. So pause the video. I'm not going to go through the list because what we want to do is to bring you to the blog that was written about ineffective leadership about 2 weeks ago. So you can also go to my website, go into the log and read it in its entirety. But what it does is that it offers up 15 leadership attributes as recommended by the Success Online magazine back in 2017. And when I read through it, most of it holds true today. So we're going to start with this 15 foundation. Yes, it's more than a 10 for moral leadership. It doesn't always have to be equal, but it's about understanding the attributes that really sabotage the business and you want to get rid of it as soon as possible. So the first step is understanding it. So the first one here is lack of transparency, as opposed to be very forthcoming and honest. You have to be transparent with your team. Otherwise, they're going to begin to distrust you. The second one is not listening. A leader listens, and you listen with your heart as well as your ears, right? Most people forget the heart part. That lends into empathy, which we're going to go into. That also made a list, so we're going to address that as well. But listening helps you to build loyalty and become faithful, because if you're listening, especially with your heart, you would know what that person is going through, regardless it's a member of your team, a business partner, a potential client, or someone who is likely to refer other clients to you. You're experiencing what they are saying because you're listening with your heart. Dismissing ideas other than your own. We spoke about having an ego. Everyone's ideas should be treated equally, and anyone can have a gem of an idea emerge, right? Creativity hits anyone at any time, so do not dismiss anyone's idea. You just might be missing out on your next big opportunity. Valuing experience over potential, and I will also say potential over experience. It has to be a balance. Best HR practice is to recruit, if you can, someone with experience and someone with potential. In that way, you are obtaining you're obtaining value from two generations. You have the baby boomer, Generation X, Generation Y with the experiences, and then you may have the one with the potential, or the I generation, or the millennial. So that's going to be very important. And part of that, in valuing both and having a nice balance, it may never be even 100% of the time, but having a nice balance, pending on what it is, would be to your advantage. We spoke about ego. I don't think it needs to be addressed any further, but it does lead you to one roadway downhill. Working 24/7 in 21st century, there's a whole wellness movement. I know one of the myths of owning a business ownership, is you have to work 24/7. And the only thing you will obtain very quickly in working 24/7 is burnout and a one-way trip to the emergency room. So don't do it. Even out your work time. Try to have some level of quality time with your family or whatever you're passionate about. A lot of research point to when you step away and you return to your workspace, ideas emerge. You become more creative. So consider that. Lack of empathy, we spoke about that earlier, is about listening with your heart. In healthcare, we tell the nurses, You have to have a sandwich. That means hear what's being said. That means you have to listen. Then listen with your heart, which is the empathy part. Understanding if this was my mother, if this was a parent, if this was a child, if this was a sister friend, a relative, or someone you really care about, what would you do? And that's listening with your heart. That's the advice you want to move forward with. And then go back to the textbook responses, right? And similarly, it's the same with business. You want to look at your business principles. Then you want to consider your biblical principles, which is the listing with your heart, right? Because you're on your faith walk. And then you sandwich it with the theory of business. Ultimately, you're in business to make money, regardless of how many scriptures you know or how good a person you are. Opening a business not to make money does not make sense. So this is about giving you the support and the tools where you can reach your optimum success while being an effective leader. And that also lends to being empathetic as you continue on your journey. Forgetting about leadership development is number 8, and that really lends to growth and education for your employees. We know that professional development increases employee retention and creates a more innovative an exciting team, especially when it comes to iGeneration. But as an Generation X myself, I also pursue professional development. And with a great American resignation that occurred in March 2022, we know that a lot of individuals that left the workforce are returning or opting to start their business, or opting, the ones with experience, like a baby boomer who retired, they are opting to go back to the labor force, but with a small business, not corporate. So this is an opportunity where we're talking about experience and taking advantage of that, because there's a lot you can learn. Being overly conservative, again, this is about a business ultimately. So it's important to know that business is about taking risk. If you open a business, you're already aware of that. So do not be risk averse. Do not be conservative when it comes to business. You must draw that ethical line, not necessarily chasing the almighty dollar, but allowing yourself to understand what is risky that will benefit your business without compromising your integrity. And that is the winning formula. Permitting negative gossip, I will just say permitting gossip. There's no such thing as negative or positive gossip. My main thing is to ensure that as a small business owner, you have small teams. Ensure that you're not the chief gossip in charge. Enough said. It's important to have effective communication, and it's important to relate your strategy. So poor communication of strategy, if your team is not aware of your mission, your vision, your value, that can lend to being an ineffective leader. They need to know where you're going. They need to share your vision. You cannot ask your team to drive in the dark. Without having effective communication of strategy, is like putting blindfolders on your team and having them drive, even if it's a Tesla, having them drive in the dark. Don't do it. Closed-mindedness as opposed to open-mindedness. You have to be open to feedback and ideas. Assigning blame, it's important to know that you have to take responsibility. This is your business. Accountability starts with you and ends with you. Assume responsibility, be accountable. If you have to apologize, whatever that may be, whether it's to a client or a business partner or member of your team, you do what you have to do. The person, if it's not you and it happens to someone else, you call that person in. You do render discipline as a leader, so make sure you advise them accordingly, counsel them, coach them. And again, if you're evolving into a moral, ethical leader, they will also see the evolution when it comes to you doing the work, and they will do so also. Eventually, as a leader, you also have to make the tough decisions. If the person does not change course, ultimately, they can be let go. Okay, those are some of the tough decisions that a leader has to make. Inconsistency, the goal here is to be consistently consistent. Inconsistency leads just to confusion and mixed signals. Don't do it. It's important that you set the record straight. We all know in business or in life, The only thing that's constant is change. That is true. That doesn't mean you can go left and right, left and right. It's chaotic. It wreaks havoc in the workplace. It even wreaks havoc in your personal space. So be consistent. Be consistently consistent. Being too slow to adapt is also our 15th attribute that we're going to consider. In business, you have to adapt to the external environment. You also have to adapt to internal environment, such like the pandemic and wars, right? Those are external. What about if individuals within your team, they all, God forbid, caught COVID? You have to adapt quickly. You have to become the secretary and the CFO, the bookkeeper, the runner, whatever that may be. I liken adaptability to the ocean. And while I do not surf, I love watching the professionals surf. And the movement of the ocean, clearly the ocean doesn't stay still, right? So the water goes up and down and it meanders. And with that movement is also the flexibility and the beauty of the surfer moving with the ocean. So it's the motion in the ocean, being flexible, and don't ever accept the concept of this is the way that I've always done it. We need to get rid of that as well. That means you're rigid, and eventually that's going to lead to your demise. Business sabotage, don't do it. So those are some of the words, the 15 words we're considering, and I'm going to go into my favorites here. And hopefully I also bookmarked what I recommended that you bookmark, which is, yes, I did right here. So we're going to get into the thesaurus, Merriam website thesaurus. Again, if you're new, we recommend that you always have a dictionary as a business leader. It helps with your communication. It helps build your vocabulary. And what I love about this website is that it has quizzes and games. It gives you the word of the day. And if every day you were to go into this dictionary, that would help build your vocabulary and allow you to be a more effective communicator, both verbally as well as orally. So going back to our online program, now that we know the 15 words from our blog of the 15 attributes of an ineffective leader, we're going to go to the first one. The first one says lack of transparency. So what we're going to do is type in the word. We're not going to put lack of transparency. We're going to put the word transparency or transparent. So let's see. I'm doing it in real time with you. And at any moment, please be sure to pause and you can jump back in. So this is transparency. It says it's a noun as a part of speech. Transparency as in clarity, the state or quality of being easily seen through. And there is a sentence below, because of the transparency of the Caribbean waters, we could see kind of the marine life, right? And if I were to change this and put the word transparent, so you can change it as well. Then we know that transparent is an adjective, as in crystal, easily seen through. I think this is a better depiction. So you want your team to see you, right? No team member or no partner or potential client should feel a level of dis-ease in your presence or when doing business with you because you're not transparent. So be forthcoming, be forthright, and be transparent. So understanding the word is the first step. Here you have synonyms and similar words, which is very important. And then each word is a hyperlink. So if you want to further break down, let's just say pellucid. We go on to pellucid, hit on it, and there the word pellucid comes up as an adjective, as in crystal, easily seen through. Again, synonyms and similar words all the way down. And what I love is the antonyms. So you want to know what the word means and you want to know what the opposite of the word means. I'm going to stop sharing. And that's the goal behind this lesson. Just like lesson number 2, understanding what the words mean and the opposite is where you're going to now take your information going back to the SWOT analysis, and we're not going to be using the strengths and weakness column. We're going to be using two columns for this episode. That's the weaknesses and the threats. So you're not going to be using the strengths and the strengths and opportunities, just the weakness and the threats. What I want you to do is, once you understand the words, and you could go through all of them, it would be great, but I understand that your time is valuable. So, in assessing which one is your negative habit that you have adopted, you fully understand what it means. You plug it as a weakness and a threat. And this is the difference. And this is how we are defining it in this practice, right? A weakness is a negative attribute, one of that we might have listed, but we are aware of it. And this is a kicker, and we're doing something about it. So if you're aware that you have an ego, and you're doing something about it, meaning you're trying to become more humble, right? And every day you're actively doing something about it. Oh, if you need help in your communication and you're taking a writing course because you want to improve your writing skills, that's a weakness because you're aware of it, you're cognizant of it, and you're actively doing something to remove it. Because if it remains here for long, one of these days, if it comes down to communication, a partner, a very big contract, because the higher you go, the more your skill sets have to be in tune, may easily say, well, no, you lost the $2 million contract because your writing was not the best. I need strong individuals, right? Oh, you would have to pay a lot of money to get it written, right? And if that's the case, and you have the money to spend, fine. But that's just an example. You want to remove and eliminate any ineffective leadership, not even transition it. You want to remove it. There's no reason to transition it under strengths or opportunities because they're already negative, right? So that's the definition of a weakness. You're aware of it, you're actively doing something about it, so we know it's going to be eliminated, but it's still a weakness because you're not there yet. You haven't evolved yet. And how would we know that you have evolved and it's no longer an issue? If you're doing the opposite naturally, if you're naturally listening with your heart, if you're naturally giving other people an opportunity to speak, if you're naturally, and it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, accepting ideas and said, okay, everyone bring your ideas. If you're doing that, you know that you have evolved because it's natural to you and physiologically, it does not affect you. If it's affecting you physiologically, you're still work in progress, but you're on your way. A threat, even bigger bomber, business sabotage, is if you're not aware of it. Could you imagine that you're not aware that you have an ego? So listen to your spouse, team members, your confidant, but most importantly, listen to yourself and be honest. Part of my coaching practice is asking the tough questions. And it doesn't equate to being a psychologist or psychiatrist, but putting out the questions that you may not necessarily ask yourself. You're paying me to ask you those tough questions. And because we're about accountability, I'm your accountability partner within the coaching session, then I will find ways to make sure you answer those questions without you not even knowing it. So there's a technique to that. But you're doing your self-reflection on your own. And part of that is saying, okay, I guess I have an ego once you've asked everyone. I guess I'm not transparent because I'm always hiding my stuff, but I don't trust my staff. So what do I do? Maybe find staff that you can trust or relate to them your concerns. And if there's a reason to be concerned, then as a leader, you want to resolve that issue. If there's no reason and you found no reasons to be concerned and it's just a mental issue, meaning that moment that you're just thinking this, right? Then you admit it, you do better, and your staff needs to see the difference. But in conclusion, it's important to note that your staff will model your behavior. If you're expecting higher of them, first expect higher of yourself. And if you've watched this and you're saying, sounds like crazy talk, maybe, maybe not, don't knock it if you haven't tried it. So if you're here, you desire, or you may have doubts, but try it. What do you have to lose? It's free. It doesn't take much time. It's under 30 minutes. You do the work. There'll be a series of exercises. And once you do the work, you'll begin to see the transition. You begin to see the evolution, right? You begin to see that butterfly that emerge. And as a result of that, that's going to elevate your business, whatever it is, regardless of the industry. Your leadership style can make a big difference in terms of your revenue, your clientele, possible collaboration and partnerships, and definitely having high performance teams. Your teams are going to bat for you if you're an effective, and I would say moral, ethical leader. Stay tuned for episode number 4, titled Character. I hope you'll join us for episode number 4 for CPR Moral Leadership Coaching. I am Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And again, if you've missed episode 1 and 2, we've just started out. So it doesn't hurt to go back and view episode 1 and 2 to play catch up. Okay, until then, next time, be well. We want to end with a biblical principle. So I am just going to put on my scarf. And this is important as well. This is where CPR LLC, we are set apart from others. We believe in walking our faith walk in our business. And if you're the same, again, you're on your faith walk and you do want to do better, the only way you can do better is, again, practicing it, practicing it day in and day out. One should not leave their faith at the business door. Your faith, your belief walks with you. It's part of you. It's the very essence of who you are. And in terms of a leader, we talk about wisdom. And wisdom is a gift. We know that, that we can, that is available to us. And that would also help us in making those moral and ethical decisions. We're going to conclude from the book of Proverbs. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 13 to 14. It says, "Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and gain thereof than fine gold." And I love those 2 verses or phrases because it tells us that wisdom is finer than silver and gold. And isn't that the truth? We are all trying to make the almighty dollar, right? Or crypto. And so we have to understand we can do it, we can be successful, but if we are moving with wisdom and on our faith walk, we cannot afford a business to sever our relationship. So in order not to do so, you have to understand what it takes to operate in today's world while here, and still maintaining morality and your ethics. So I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you again so much for viewing this video. And I will see you again, episode number 4, titled Character. So I will see you then. Thank you for joining us.